Hey everyone, it's Dr. Harvey. We're going to talk about Chapter 3, Research Design today. So in Chapter 3, Research Design, we are going to define research design. We're going to look at the three main research designs: exploratory, descriptive, and causal, the relationships among those. And we're going to touch a little bit on marketing research and social media. So when we look at research design and defining that, it's really a framework. It's our blueprint for conducting our process. It details all the things that we need to do, all the procedures that we need. So when we look at the components of the research design, I listed here all of the chapters that they come from. So this is going to be how the way this textbook is structured is we're going to talk a little bit about overview of something, and then we get more in depth. So we're going to have an overview of research design, and then we're going to go more in depth. Okay, so we're going to talk about it here. Then we're going to go chapters 4, 5, 6, 7 are all going to be continuing to talk about exploratory, descriptive, and causal research. Chapters 8 and 9 are going to talk about measurement and scaling procedures, also part of the research design. Chapter 10 is all about constructing our questionnaire, our survey, and then how do we figure out what people to ask the questions to and how many people do we need? That's chapters 11 and 12. And then developing the plan of data analysis is chapter 14. So all of these are going to be important as you are building your research design protocol, which is the second part of the group project that you'll turn in. So in marketing research, we classify exploratory research sort of all on its own. It's exploring things. Sometimes it just helps us figure out what the problem is. Sometimes it gives us insights into the problem. Then we have conclusive research, and this is going to be descriptive or causal. Most commonly, we're going to see descriptive research, where we have a variety of different designs. We're going to get into the details of those designs in a future chapter. So what are the differences between exploratory and conclusive? I kind of already mentioned this, but exploratory is really about insights and understanding, maybe even understanding the question itself, where conclusive is we're testing specific hypotheses. We're trying to actually solve the problem. Exploratory research is flexible. It's not particularly structured. It can evolve as we go through. Maybe we're doing some interviews and an interview uncovers something new. And so the next person we interview, we're going to ask about that something new if they don't mention it. This is qualitative research. Okay, qualitative, not numbers, words. Almost, not always, but oftentimes this is followed by more research. Conclusive, where we're testing those specific hypotheses, is very formal. It's very structured. We're going to come up with that survey, that questionnaire. We're going to send it out, and we're not going to change it. It can't be changed. It has to stay exactly the same way so that everybody answers the exact same questions. It gives us data on those particular measurement points. This data analysis is quantitative. It is numbers oriented. And this is where we see more impactful research in terms of making decisions. And then when we break it up further, we have exploratory, and then descriptive and causal are both conclusive. So you can look into this a little bit more here. We're going to get into all the details of this later, but this is a really good comparison table for studying purposes. Exploratory research is often used, again, to define the problem, to look at different alternatives, to develop our hypotheses. If you go back to the United example, from their interviews and focus groups, they figured out here are the things that we think are important for customers' loyalty to an airline. And then they took that information and it helped them further down the road when they created the survey about the food. Methods are going to be things like qualitative research, which we'll discuss in chapter 5, interviews and focus groups, secondary data, which is data that's already out there that already exists. Maybe we're going to analyze blog posts or reviews on Amazon. Pilot surveys, so surveys that we're just using as a test, and actually interviewing or surveying experts. Descriptive research, right? Here we're going to use this to describe characteristics of maybe our target market. Maybe we use it to estimate how many people, what percentage of people what percentage of our target market uses Instagram, if we're looking at Instagram as a way to advertise. Looking at what do people think of our product characteristics. Maybe we have a new product, or we're going to change something about our product, or we're going to add a new flavor. So we're going to go ask people, which one do you like better? Or can you rate your, how you feel about this particular flavor or these colors of this packaging? Looking at which marketing variables are related. So is price related to loyalty? So on and so forth. Lots of uses of descriptive research. Predominantly in descriptive research, we're looking at surveys. There are other ways to conduct descriptive research, but by and large, we're looking at surveys. Then we get even more detailed. So in cross-sectional designs for our descriptive research, this is how we collect the data. Are we going to collect it from 2 different groups of people and then compare them? Are we going to collect it from the same group of people, but at different times, which is not cross-sectional, well, it's a longitudinal, or are we going to just collect it from one group of people at one time? So here's just an example of that cohort analysis where we're collecting data from the same people over different time intervals. So here's a cohort example looking at their different ages and what kind of soft drinks they drank. Longitudinal is going to be something that's measured over the long term. So maybe there's an example on Blackboard of some longitudinal designs that I'd encourage you to watch the videos on. Then we have some, one of the things about cross-sectional data is that sometimes it may be hard to show change because you're collecting from different people. Whereas longitudinal data, we're going to collect from the same group of people, the same questions over time. So here we can see more substantial change. And then causal research is our third type. This is where we're actually looking for cause and effect. So I'm going to talk about this probably 100 times in this class. When you see a headline that says advertising causes childhood obesity, you can almost be certain that that's not an accurate headline. It may be the case that advertising causes childhood obesity, but that's not something that we can generally prove with research. All we can see is if things are related, if they're correlated. And so the key here is correlation. Things being related is not causation. And we'll talk more about that in the future as well. Causal research is really trying to figure out what is the cause. And so we do this through experiments. So yes, think back to high school science class or college science, and we're really looking at controlling everything except for the thing that we're concerned about. So here's an example. Okay, trying to look at market parameters to looking at Citicorp branches. Okay. They did some exploratory research involving focus groups to figure out the needs and desires of the market. All right. They found a lot of diversity in the senior citizens that they were looking at. Then they brainstormed and came up with all these different financial packages that they thought people over 55 might be interested in these. They had 10 of them. Then they looked at the 10 ideas and tested whether they were possible in relation to the actual business. So can I easily explain it to the target market, and does it actually fit with our strategy? And all these other questions. So I'm not going to read all of them to you, but really kind of whittling the list of 10 down to a point that they could actually test some things. So they looked at, here's the proposed product. We've whittled it down, and we're going to do some surveys with people in the target range. They went to the mall. This is where you're walking through the mall and someone says, hey, can I have a minute of your time? We'll talk more about that later too. And so they asked these people, these senior citizens, all these different questions. And what they figured out was we have all these special features we want to offer. There's just too many of them. And so they said, okay, well, let's just drop the ones that the competitors offer. We'll just keep the ones that are unique to us. All right. So then they test marketed it. They even did further research in 6 of the Citicorp branches within the target market. This is causal research. So we also see this with like fast food restaurants. Okay, so they actually bring the product, or in this case, the service, to those branches, and they see for 3 to 6 months to a year how they actually perform. Okay. If it's successful, then they often roll it out on a nationwide basis. Last year, I think sometime recently, we were actually a test market in Spartanburg in this area for Chick-fil-A with their, it was a chicken sandwich that had like pimento cheese and bacon and honey or something, maple syrup or something on it. So we were a test market for that. And I'll be honest, I've been hoping that it was successful and that they concluded that it was great, and they're eventually going to roll it out nationally. And then finally, with marketing research and social media, just touching on this again, we like social networks because they help us eliminate some of the crazy costs that are associated with traditional research. Paying a person, even if it's $1 for every single survey, can get really onerous over time. There are lots of different ways we can collect data online in each of these different areas, especially with exploratory and with descriptive research. I'd ask you to watch this video on Blackboard about the differences between qualitative and quantitative research. It's a great way to delineate between the two and just reiterate what we've talked about here. And that's it for chapter 3.